That's SMB at KBLA1580.com. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
And if I share with you my story, would you share your shadow with me?
Happy National African Immigrant Heritage Month. Live from the White House. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey. I'm in touch until you be in touch. Follow me on all the social media platforms at Dr. Nii-Quartelai. That's DrNiiQuartelai. Pro tip, just type in Dr. Nii, DrNii, and boom, bam, boom. There I am for you to follow. Be sure to download the KBLA app to listen to us live or on demand, or simply tell Alexa to play KBLA Talk 1580. And like magic, there I am for your listening pleasure. And then subscribe to A More Perfect Union podcast. That way you'll never, ever, ever miss an episode. From the White House to your house, we got you covered with expert analysis, with compelling conversations with leaders on the front lines. There is so much at stake in this final stretch between now and the November election. And we want to make sure that we are giving you the news that you need, and we're a refuge from the noise that you hear just too much of. Lastly, be sure to pick up Kamala, the Motherland, and Me. It is my new Amazon best-selling book. There it is right there on the screen. I've been hearing a lot of great feedback about the book, and I'm really anxious to announce some secure dates where I'm going to be in different parts of the country. I look forward to being in conversation with so many of you about this momentous journey. Now, it's time for your National News Roundup. It's time for the good, bad, and ugly headlines of the day. But before we get into that, just as a public service announcement, I know that it is really hot in Los Angeles right now, where our home station is. So hot that the city of LA has created hundreds of locations, have opened up hundreds of locations for relief from the heat, including recreation and parks facilities and local library branches. The mayor's office announced that there are a whole number of locations that are going to be open for extended hours. You can go to laparks.org/rec center. You can also go to www.lapl.org/branches. And Angelinos can call 311 within LA City to learn more. The city has opened some augmented cooling centers, which will open from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. From today, Tuesday, September 3rd, through Friday, September 6th. So if you're looking for some respite from the heat, there you have it. Be sure to check out those resources. Now on to the good, bad, and ugly headlines of the day. I know this question's been whipping around the White House briefing room today, questions about the Israel-Gaza war. What is the Philadelphia corridor, and why is it a sticking point in the Israel-Hamas talks? NBC News is reporting that this small sliver of land, maybe small, but it's become a major sticking point between Israel and Hamas. The so-called Philadelphia corridor has emerged as a critical factor holding up a ceasefire deal that would end the months-long war in the Gaza Strip and secure the release of hostages still held in the enclave. Outcry over the killings of 6 hostages has intensified pressure on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, with President Biden saying just today that he was not doing enough to secure a deal. But Netanyahu did signal they had no plans to soften his stance on keeping troops in the area despite mass protests and internal disagreements. And so you might be wondering, why is the Philadelphia corridor? What is it? And why is it so important? Well, for starters, the Philadelphia corridor, also known as the Salah al-Din axis, refers to just this narrow strip of land just under 9 miles in length and around 100 yards wide that runs along the Gaza side of the coastal enclave border with Egypt. It includes the key Rafah border crossing. We've been talking a lot about Rafah. It includes that. Long considered a lifeline for Palestinians in Gaza, allowing crucial supplies of food and medicine and other aid to get to the strip and enabling the movement of Palestinians in and out of the enclave under a 17-year blockade imposed by Israel. Well, that corridor was set up as a buffer zone in accordance with the 1978 Camp David Accords between Egypt and Israel, with the aim of controlling movement in and out of Gaza and preventing arms smuggling between Egyptians and the Palestinian enclave. And so, this is a major sticking point. We haven't heard anything from the White House today that suggests that this sticking point is being alleviated in any way, shape, or form, but we will be sure to keep you posted as developments occur. Back here in the United States, did you hear that an ex-aide to New York Governor Hochul has been charged as a Chinese agent? That's right. The USA Today is reporting that a former aide to the New York governor has been charged with acting as an undisclosed agent of the Chinese government. That's according to federal prosecutors in Brooklyn. Prosecutors say that Linda Sun, just 41 years old, Hochul's former deputy chief of staff, was arrested today and is expected to be presented in court later today. Sun's husband, Chris Hu, also faces criminal charges. Sun was an aide to both Hochul and her predecessor as governor, Andrew Cuomo. That's been reported by the local media in New York. U.S. Attorney Brian Peace said in a statement that Sun had used her state government service to, quote, further the interests of the Chinese government and the Chinese Communist Party. The illicit scheme enriched the defendant's family to the tune of millions of dollars. The couple used the money to buy a 2024 Ferrari Roma sports car, as well as property on New York's Long Island and in Honolulu, together worth about $6 million. And so a New York Long Island property and a Honolulu property totaling $6 million, they were really showing out. So we'll continue to follow that story as it develops, and just bringing you an update on what's happening in the 2024 election cycle. NBC reporting a dogfight, saying that Harris and Trump are entering their final election stretch after Labor Day, and that's what it's amounting up to. An unprecedented summer has turned the presidential race on its head, with 2 months to go. 2 months to go until Election Day, showing a dead heat in key states between Democrat Kamala Harris and Republican Donald Trump, as both candidates gear up for the final blitz after the Labor Day holiday weekend. A race that was slipping away from President Biden and is competitive again after he withdrew July 21st and passed the baton to his vice president, who's captured support from key groups that had soured on him, most notably young folks and Black voters. Harris, 59, has turned the issue of age from potentially fatal liability to an asset for Democrats against the 78-year-old Trump. And the former president, who's running with confidence, he was running with confidence against Biden, has appeared rattled at times by Harris, launching personal and racial attacks against a rival who would be the first woman and first Indian American to be president. She has brushed them off. Let me tell you, within the past week, I've had a chance to cover Vice President Harris and Governor Walz in Savannah, Georgia. Just yesterday, I was in Newport News, Virginia, covering the second gentleman who was at Congressman Bobby Scott's 47th annual Labor Day cookout. And everywhere I go, on the campaign trail. I can tell you there is a lot of enthusiasm on the ground. I was talking to a volunteer coordinator in Newport News just yesterday, and she and her husband have been volunteers for election cycle after election cycle for decades, and say that even compared to the Obama years, that they haven't seen this kind of enthusiasm in Virginia. In lieu of volunteer recruitment, she says they're being flooded by volunteers into their offices asking, "What can I do?" And so when Michelle Obama, the forever first lady, got up there at the Democratic convention and said, "Do something," clearly, at least in Newport News, Virginia, Hampton Roads, Virginia, people are filing in the Harris Walz campaign offices by the droves, doing exactly that. And in Savannah, Georgia, the same. There were nearly 8,000 people who showed up on a weekday to hear Vice President Harris speak. And so lots of enthusiasm on the ground. The question is, can the Harris Walz campaign translate that enthusiasm into voter registration, into vote by mail ballots, into folks showing up and showing out on election day? This is not a marathon, it is a sprint. And to many people on the ground, it feels that way. When we come forward, I'm delighted to welcome back to the show my friend, our friend, Dr. Jonathan Collins over at Columbia University. He was quoted in an article, an ABC News article recently, talking about Moms for Liberty and how they're fully embracing Trump, and how they are widening some of the polarization, shall we say, that exists in this country. There's some folks out there trying to narrow that, other folks trying to widen it, and it looks like Moms for Liberty is on the widening side, to say the least. When we come forward, we want to update you on what Moms for Liberty is up to, and we're going to get Dr. Jonathan Collins' expert analysis. We're live from the White House. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580. Tabitha Smiley's new book, The Covenant with Black America, 20 years later, is now on sale everywhere. This classic text shot to #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list almost 2 decades ago. If you have the original book, you will surely want to get this 20th anniversary edition with powerful new contributions from today's leading voices. This 20th anniversary edition presents a compelling blend of historical insights and contemporary urgency in this critical and unprecedented election year. Get your copy of The Covenant with Black America 20 years later today.
Introducing the new Swiffer Power Mop, the all-in-one tool that gives you a mop and bucket clean in half the time. The solution's built right in, so no heavy bucket, and the pad has hundreds of scrubbing strips to get deep into grout. Don't mop harder, mop smarter. Swiffer Power Mop. Swiffer Power Mop.
Our daughter Jessie loves playing detective.
But since we discovered she has sensitive skin, we've been playing detective too.
We thought the problem was our puppy.
But it was actually our old detergent. So we switched to Tide Free and Gentle.
Tide Free and Gentle has no dyes or perfumes, so it's gentle on her skin.
If it's got to be clean, it's got to be Tide Free and Gentle. This back-to-school season, Tide and Downy are giving back with $1.5 million in scholarships. Enter to win. No purchase necessary. US/DC 17+. End September 30th. Rules. Tide.com/scholarship/official rules.
Always night pads are designed for a perfect night's sleep. So you can do your bear hugging a pillow thing, your free-falling starfish thing, your burritoed in a blanket with the AC blasting thing. While Always night pads with rapid dry do their we've got your back with fast absorbency and up to 10 hours of protection thing. So while your period's doing its own thing, Always lets you do your sleep thing. Shop for Always in-store or online, wherever you get your pads.
The moment we've all been waiting for has finally arrived. On Tuesday, September 10th at 6 p.m. Pacific Time, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump will square off in their first ever presidential debate. KBLA Talk 1580 and the Empowerment Congress are hosting a viewing party, and we're inviting you to join us for an evening of civic engagement, great food, and good vibes. Our studio space is limited, but if you would like to join us, just go to our website at kbla1580.com and register for your chance to watch this historic presidential debate with us. Years from now, we're all likely to remember exactly where we were when this pivotal moment in American politics unfolded. So, register for your chance to join us by going to kbla1580.com right now. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black. This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate loses and love wins.
Unmute.
To a more perfect union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai, Quartey, live from the White House, and really delighted to welcome back to the show my friend, our friend, Dr. Jonathan Allen, a professor over at the Columbia University. Welcome back to the show, my friend.
Thank you, Dr. Quartey. Thank you for having me. Great to see you.
Of course. It's great to have you here, and it's even better when I am doing my daily news gathering, and I see that a good friend and a political expert is quoted in an ABC News article talking about Moms for Liberty and how they are not even hiding it. They're fully embracing Trump. Just last weekend, or just this past weekend, there was a gathering of Moms for Liberty where they showcase just how far the group has come. In her welcoming remarks at Moms for Liberty's annual gathering in the nation's capital on Friday, the group's co-founder, Tiffany Justice, urged members to fight like a mother against the Democratic presidential ticket. Later in the evening, after she had interviewed Republican nominee Donald Trump on stage, she made a point to say that she was personally endorsing him for the presidency. Their talk show style chat was preceded by chants of Trump, Trump, Trump from the audience. Dr. Collins, what do you make of Moms for Liberty, making, making no apologies, for their support of the former president?
Well, it's interesting because they're not hiding who they are anymore. And so the Moms for Liberty organization has been building for a few years now. They are at the forefront of what is considered the quote unquote parent rights movement. And so the parent rights movement evolved out of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. This started with a bunch of parents, mostly white parents, mostly angry white parents, who took concern with mask mandates and some of the implementation of COVID-19 protocol. But then this evolved into essentially almost kind of a catch-all for all types of xenophobic ideas around a changing culture in America. All those things just got attached to this quote unquote parents' rights movement. And it evolved into this coalition of, again, mostly white, very angry activists who pretty much have a very set list of issues which they take concern. And those issues, where they land on those issues, are extremely conservative positions. And so over time, what we've seen, because of the conservative nature of their positions, they've gotten extremely close to actual officials within the Republican Party. So this is a group that claims that they're nonpartisan, but now they've held this summit this is the fourth year in a row, I believe, that they've held this national summit. The speakers at the national summit continue to be leading Republican politicians. This year it was President Trump, former President Trump, who headlined the event. Last year, Trump was speaking there again. You had every notable Republican seeking the nomination was speaking at the Moms for Liberty summit in 2023. You have DeSantis, who spoke at last year's summit, has been heavily involved, and then is going into his home state of Florida and endorsing candidates at the school board level who champion some of the ideas that are kind of incubated within Moms for Liberty and some of these similar organizations. And so, they're saying the quiet part out loud. They're explicitly an extremely political organization, and they really are a threat.
Yeah, and this is the deal. Moms for Liberty, they say that they won't make an official endorsement in the presidential race, but they aren't shying away clearly from getting involved. The group's founder recently wrote an open letter to parents warning that Harris and her running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, who, by the way, is a former high school social studies teacher, would be the most anti-parent extremist government America has ever known. Saber rattling, to say the least. What do you make of this parents' rights movement, as they call it? I think there are a number of other people that would describe this movement as just straight MAGA, and among other things, but they describe it as a parents' rights movement. We know that in the midterm elections, they were quite successful. According to some reports, about 50% of their endorsed candidates actually won their races. Right now, it's looking like maybe about a third of their endorsed candidates may be victorious. So a far cry from their peak in 2022. What do you make of the survivability of this movement, given the struggle that former President Trump is having in his current campaign?
Well, Moms for Liberty has a very paradoxical problem here. So, on the one end, they've grown to be extremely popular nationally amongst the conservative base.
I want to make sure we can hear you.
Okay. How about I'll project a little bit louder. So, one issue, they have a very interesting paradox that's happening here with them politically. So, while on one end, they have become extremely popular nationally, and they spread and they've grown. So they have over 200 different localized branches of Moms for Liberty that operate in over 40 states. I believe 44 states specifically have Moms for Liberty branches. So they're everywhere. The issue is that they're actually more popular nationally amongst conservatives compared to how popular they are locally within specific communities. So Moms for Liberty candidates who are running on platforms around book bans and around the oppressive and regressive policies aimed at transgender students, policies aimed at sort of attacking or reeling back the idea of critical race theory. These policy positions are extremely unpopular locally, even in some areas that skew towards Republicans and conservatives. And so locally, they're struggling to succeed. But again, their bread and butter has been the ability to appeal nationally into national politics. So they have this national summit, and they get people coming from around the country, conservatives coming from around the country to be a part of this, and are energized by the messaging that's coming from this. But at the same time, the electoral viability of their message at the local level, we've yet to really quite see it take off. If anything, it's been waning more and more over time. So can Moms for Liberty sustain itself? Can the parents' rights movement sustain itself as a national idea? Well, yeah, there seems to be a lot of momentum for that on the right. The question is, will they have enough localized activity to actually sort of ground that sustainability? Because if you're marketing yourself as an organization that cares about schools and kids, well, you're caring more about what's happening locally at the community level. But the interesting thing here is that the communities are saying, we don't want you here. We don't support your ideas. We don't think that you're giving us a vision for the future. And so they have a crossroads that they have to figure out how to meet.
Crossroads indeed. Let's talk a little bit about, there are about 10 states across the country that are also going to have reproductive freedom on the ballot, including states like Florida, states like Arizona, states like Nevada, battleground states. I don't think we're talking enough about the potential coattails of folks atop the ticket. We're seeing a lot of enthusiasm around Harris Walz, but the story we're not talking about is how far might that enthusiasm translate to folks that are bottom of the ticket. We know that who sits on our school boards, who sits in district attorneys' offices across the country have a direct effect on our everyday life. And so what are you seeing? What emerging trends should we note related to the coattails of the Republican and Democratic nominee for president?
Well, the coattail effect is very real. And so you should expect for local candidates who are running in races where they project the national candidate to do well, you should expect similar levels of success. Where this breaks apart is at the primary level. And so the kind of candidates that we have moving into the general election at the local level, that is going to be the thing that varies. And the question that every community is going to have to ask is, what kind of candidates survived our primary process? Was it a more radical, a more extreme candidate who survived said primary process? Or was this a candidate that may be a bit more pragmatic and a little bit more moderate and center of the road? And I think you're going to find that those more pragmatic candidates under the partisan label in the general election are going to fare better. And so just the partisan label alone isn't going to get it done. There's clear evidence that, yes, there is a down ballot voting, but down ballot voting isn't enough to carry candidates at the local level. How do we know this? Think about it mathematically. The average turnout rate for presidential elections is about between 60 and 65%. Yet the average voter turnout rate that we tend to see in a city or any kind of municipal, whether it's city or school board election, is going to hover around 25%. So that tells you that folks are more than happy voting for president and going home, maybe even voting for president in Congress and going home. The idea that this is going to automatically trickle down to the local level, well, that's not true. And you're going to see mostly voters who are specifically interested in what's happening locally. They are going to be the ones who are making the decisions here.
When we come forward more with Dr. Jonathan Collins, professor over at Columbia University, with COVID-19 relief gone, guess what? Teachers are losing their jobs. This is affecting the diversity in our schools, and the timing so close to this presidential election might be bad for Democrats. I don't know, but Dr. Collins might know. More with Dr. Collins when we come forward. You are watching and listening to A More Perfect Union live from the White House on KBLA Talk 1580.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to here with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. Marylanders appear to be happy with the job Black Governor Wes Moore is doing. A new Gonzalez research poll puts Moore's approval rating at 64%, 6 points higher than a similar poll in February. About 24% disapprove of the governor's job performance and 12% are unsure. The poll found 82% of Democrats, 35% of Republicans, and 52% of independent voters give high marks to Moore. The Washington Department of Commerce has awarded $29 million in grants to support housing initiatives, and a local organization, Take Up the Cause, will receive a portion of those funds. The group works to make housing more affordable in Spokane. Take Up the Cause is part of the Black Home Ownership Spokane cohort, which is already helping 13 people with down payment assistance and affordable home ownership programs. With an $809,000 grant, the organization plans to launch a new debt paydown program for Black homeowners, aiming to overcome high debt-to-income ratios that often block access to home ownership. That's the latest. I'm Amber Payton on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network.
It's Mattress Firm's best sale of the year. Get a Sleepy's Queen mattress at the lowest price ever, just $89.99. Offer ends Tuesday. In-store pickup only. Hurry and stop by Mattress Firm during their Labor Day sale.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The National Football League is approaching a very special milestone this season. When the regular season kicks off Thursday night, an unprecedented 15 teams will be starting a Black quarterback. That's almost half of the NFL's 32 teams. Here are the 15 Black quarterbacks we will see in the starting lineup this week. Jacoby Brissett, New England Patriots. Rookie Jaden Daniels, Washington Commanders. Jalen Hurts, Philadelphia Eagles. Lamar Jackson, Baltimore Ravens. Jordan Love, Green Bay Packers. Patrick Mahomes, Kansas City Chiefs. Kyler Murray, Arizona Cardinals. Dak Prescott, Dallas Cowboys. Anthony Richardson, Indianapolis Colts. Geno Smith, Seattle Seahawks. C.J. Stroud, Houston Texans. Deshaun Watson, Cleveland Browns. Rookie Caleb Williams, Chicago Bears. Russell Wilson, Pittsburgh Steelers, and Bryce Young, Carolina Panthers. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
We must understand the politics of our community, and we must know what part politics play in our lives.
Questions about Black voters, their disengagement, lack of information, and support or lack thereof for Democratic candidates have once again taken center stage as Democrats, Republicans, and independent candidates compete for this critical voting bloc. Will Black voters abandon Democrats in this election, move historic numbers of votes toward the Republican nominee, or will they continue a decades-long trend of overperforming for Democratic candidates up and down the ballot? The stakes have never been higher for Black America. Tune in to KBLA's new show, The Black Pack, hosted by veteran political strategist Adrian Shropshire, every Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. for a breakdown of the issues, rhetoric, polling, and more this election year. It's The Black Pack with Adrian Shropshire, Fridays from 4 to 6 p.m. exclusively on KBLA Talk 1580.
Oh, man. Looks like Bobby needs a ride to the airport again.
Grab the keys.
Oh, who's taking Auntie and her friends to the swap meet?
Grab the keys.
How about we drop these boxes off at Miss Johnson?
Grab the keys.
Whether you're giving rides or hauling gear, you're all about getting things done. So do it all in a Chevy SUV. From the versatile Equinox and sporty Blazer to the roomy Traverse, our lineup of SUVs will carry you through every adventure. All you have to do is
grab the keys.
That's how we do. Head to your local Chevy dealer, where well-qualified buyers get 1.9% financing on all 2024 Malibu, Colorado, Blazer, Equinox, Trailblazer, and Traverse limited models. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $28.60 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 15.8%. Must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 7/1/24.
This is the story of the one. As a facility technician installing a new welding station, he knows getting the ventilation right is critical for safety. That's why when questions arise, there's Grainger. Grainger offers detailed technical product information online at his fingertips, so it's easy to find what he needs. Because when it comes to safety, having answers means he and his people can breathe a little easier. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
You've got a Pepto predicament, Beach Bum.
Hey, we're heading down to the beach. You coming?
Yeah, Dad. You coming?
I had a little too much to eat at the resort buffet. I need a minute. Oh, you overdid it. And now your beach vacation is giving you belly waves. Undo it with Pepto.
When you have nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
Pepto chewables provide fast 5-symptom relief so you can get back to making memories. When you overdo it, undo it with Pepto. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Find a righteous rage and don't be afraid to say what you see. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai, Quartey, live from the White House, and joined here with my friend, Dr. Jonathan Collins. He's a professor over at Columbia University, and we over here breaking it down from the White House to your house. We got you covered with expert analysis. And with that, Dr. Collins, I wonder, if the Harris-Walz campaign might find themselves in a bit of a pickle right now. USA Today reporting that with COVID-19 relief dollars gone, teachers are losing their jobs. And it's becoming quite the blow to diversity. For our listeners who may be a little less familiar, the Biden administration granted schools almost $190 billion over the past few years through the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund under the American Rescue Plan Act. And school officials have until the end of September to commit the remainder of their money, and districts will no longer be able to pay for non-teaching staff roles with that money after September 30th. The timing of this doesn't look too good, Dr. Collins.
Well, the optics of the of the messaging isn't consistent with what the administration has done. And so, a couple of things to keep in mind here. One, the Biden administration made the largest investment in education that we've seen since the Great Society programs of the 1960s, which created the created the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965, which created the Title I programs and a lot of the other title programs that have been investing money specifically into low-income school districts for decades now. And what we saw is federal dollars really dried up over the past few decades, and especially during like the 1980s, where like the divestment from the federal government into schools has been embarrassing. We've been globally one of the worst when it comes to federal investment in our schools. Enter the Biden administration, and then they make this extremely large investment in schools. Again, the biggest that we've seen since the 1960s. And while when the Biden administration started sending ESSER funds to states to send to districts, the clear message that they sent along with the funds was, these are temporary funds. You need to use these funds towards things that require more sort of temporary use. They were discouraging districts from using ESSER funds to hire additional personnel. And so the messaging that comes out is actually quite inconsistent with what the administration has been saying all along.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real problem. And, you know, again, USA Today reported that schools that are serving low-income students will be hit hardest by the shift in funding because those campuses receive more federal relief money, according to some experts. Schools were required to comply with some equity provisions when obligating the relief money, and the end of the funding will, create some desperate impact, particularly for students of color and kids in high poverty neighborhoods. And so I don't know about you, but I'm not sure if I'd feel good heading into what will be a highly watched presidential debate and the final stretch of this neck and neck race for the White House with this sort of messaging challenge.
Well, so there are a couple of ways to think about this. You know, one, I think, is in the context of our previous conversation about the parent rights movement. And conservatives don't seem to care much at all about the use of ESSER funds. They didn't seem to care much at all about the initial sort of provision of ESSER, the idea of sending funding to districts to assist with COVID recovery. And so the idea that any potential mismanagement or mishandling of the situation around COVID funding, I think this is a distraction from the conservatives' message, which is they want to hammer home this idea of parents' rights, and the cultural takeover of schools. I think for Harris and Walz, the more important thing here is to set the record straight and be very clear and transparent about the actual sort of conditions of the ESSER funds, how much of a seismic investment they made, the messaging that they sent to states and districts. And honestly, the pressure should really be on states to figure out ways in which they can sustain a lot of the investments that took place. I mean, if you're a district serving low-income students, and suddenly the Department of Education drops this huge balloon payment in your lap, and it's not just one balloon payment. This is happening consistently over maybe over 3 years. You know exactly how much funding is coming in. You know exactly, there's specific stipulations on how the funding should be used. Now, the guidelines coming from the Department of Education were quite clear. And I think it's up for Harris and Walz to understand that they did their part. And there's some states that are dropping the ball, and there's some district leaders who are dropping the ball.
See, that's why we have your expert analysis to help us make sure we get it right. It's important to note at least 11 states, including California, last year had policies that explicitly required districts to consider seniority in layoff decisions. We're going to see how this thing turns out. But who knows? I don't know if there's anything that the current administration can do to extend funds or move funds around. But make no mistake about it, there are a number of teachers and kids that are going to be hurt by this timed out resource for our communities. Dr. Collins, before we let you go, I want to give you an opportunity to look ahead. This time next week, we will all be getting comfortable wherever we are, preparing to watch the presidential debate between Vice President Harris and former President Trump. If you were advising the victor of that debate, what would you say? What would you advise?
I would give both candidates the opposite advice on the same issue. And because I think the debate is going to be one on how they handle the issue of reproductive rights. And I think there's there's pressure for Kamala Harris to really demonstrate that this is a primary issue for her, protecting a woman's right to choose. And I think, with Donald Trump, the conservative base is looking for the opposite messaging. They are looking for more explicit language around abortion bans. And it's going to be a matter of which candidate can be most forceful with their messaging. The other issue that I think, of course, is going to be critical here is Gaza. Kamala Harris in particular has faced a lot of criticism over a potential stance on Israel, Palestine. I think she tried to sort of thread a very, very tight needle here during her acceptance speech at the Democratic Convention just recently. But I think there's a difference between talking about this in a speech and taking questions and also facing a very petty adversary in Donald Trump. So I'll be looking for how she handles those kinds of questions.
Well, our thanks to Dr. Jonathan E. Collins, professor over at Columbia University. We'll be sure to have you back after the debate to see whether or not both or either candidate actually took that advice.
Looking forward to it.
You're listening to a More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580, live from the White House, the quiet part out loud when we come forward.
The quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
I found out that one of my players was vaping. I brought him in and asked him, where did this stuff come from? He said, it's bigger than you think, coach. He had told me that almost everybody in my team was vaping. The next day, all the parents came in, and I said, hey, you as parents need to do your part. You guys need to figure out how, why, and when this stuff is happening, and we got to get it fixed.
Coach Sanchez and his team took vaping head on. Learn how he and other Californians are beating big tobacco at undo.org.
Asthma Peak Week is almost here, September 15th through 21st, and it's time to pay attention. Peak Week is a critical time of the year for asthma flare-ups and can lead to hospitalization. Did you know that Black Americans are approximately 5 times more likely than white Americans to be hospitalized for asthma? Stay aware, have a plan, and spread the word on Asthma Peak Week. For more active asthma care tips, visit luma-edu.com. This message is brought to you by Amgen and AstraZeneca.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my side softer?
Can I make my side firmer whenever I want?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. 94% of Sleep Number smart sleepers report better sleep. And now, during our biggest sale of the year, save 50% on the Sleep Number limited edition smart bed, plus free home delivery on select smart beds when you add any base. Ends Labor Day. To find a store near you, visit sleepnumber.com.
Mom, meet Sarah.
From first time Nana moments.
Welcome to Flight 101.
To annual girls trip moments. Your can't miss moments are worth protecting against RSV. If you're 75 or older or 60 plus with a chronic condition like asthma, COPD, heart disease, or severe diabetes, you're at higher risk of landing in the hospital from RSV. And there are no prescription RSV treatments. Check eligibility and schedule your RSV vaccine at vaxassist.com.
So where should we go next?
Sponsored by Pfizer.
Don't settle for bumps, ingrowns, and itch due to dry skin. Try Venus for pubic hair and skin, the razor and regimen specifically designed for your pubic area, featuring a razor with patented irritation defense bar and skincare regimen that is dermatologist and gynecologist tested. Venus helps protect your pubic skin from shave irritation. Discover the full regimen of products at GilletteVenus.com.
Girl, I have a secret. When I get stressed out, I get sweaty. That's why I use Secret Clinical Antiperspirant. It's like my own secret weapon. For 72 hours, I get Secret's strongest protection against sweat caused by stress, heat, and activity, because you know how crazy life can get. Plus, it's made with advanced odor fighters that don't just cover up smelliness. They help prevent it from happening in the first place. Believe me, if I weren't wearing Secret, I'd be a hot, smelly mess. Thankfully, Secret works.
KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminding you that we keep us safe. Pro Football Hall of Famer and urban peace pioneer Jim Brown believed in just that. So he founded the Amera I Can Foundation for Social Change in 1988, focusing on at-risk and high-risk youth in underserved schools and juvenile detention facilities, as well as adult incarceration and reentry initiatives. The core of the Amera I Can program is its 15-chapter life skills curriculum. Mastery of these skills allows individuals to meet their academic potential, conform their behavior to acceptable societal standards, and improve the quality of their lives by equipping them with what they need to confidently and successfully contribute to society. Today, the foundation is led by its president, Monique Brown, who has been actively involved in the organization for more than 25 years. The Amera I Can Foundation continues its work in memory of its founder, actor, philanthropist, and NFL legend Jim Brown. To get involved or make a donation, please visit AmeriICanCommunity.partners. That's AmeriICanCommunity.partners. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
My mom has taken up going to the park to practice yoga.
My dad's going to a club, but not a book club, a salsa club.
Finding new hobbies comes with age.
My mom has started getting lost and not knowing where she's going.
Becoming lost or disoriented doesn't. Confusion with time or place may be a sign of Alzheimer's. An early diagnosis can help improve the quality of life for your loved one. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Lowe's knows saving pros time and money means getting the job done easier. Right now, save 10% on Georgia Pacific vinyl siding panels. Plus, save an additional 20% when you buy in bulk. And get free same-day delivery to the job site when you order by 2 p.m. Because Lowe's knows savings. Lowe's knows pros. Offer valid through 9/4. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. Discount taken at time of purchase. See sales associate for details. Exclusions apply. See Lowe's.com/same-day delivery for details.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where everybody is somebody and nobody is a stranger. You belong here.
Live from the White House, you're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and it's time for the quiet part out loud. Some folks might say, this is family business. Others might say this is important business that could have some impact, not just on this election, but on future elections. Elections for the White House and for offices up and down the ticket. USA Today is reporting that the nation's largest Black Protestant denomination faces high-stakes presidential vote, a high-stakes presidential vote of their own. The nation's largest group of Black Protestants is meeting this week for a high-stakes gathering that could thrust the denomination into an unprecedented leadership crisis, just as it faces major challenges in attracting a new generation of members. The National Baptist Convention USA is one of the 4 major Black Baptist denominations in the U.S. and is the oldest and largest of the 4. The denomination, with between 5.2 million and 7.5 million members nationwide, has long been active on a high-profile issue, on many high-profile issues, such as affordable housing, health disparities, education, and criminal justice. And it has a long legacy, as so many of you might know, on civil rights issues, and has invested in voter reg and voter rights initiatives in recent years, a focus that's drawn the attention of so many national political leaders, including President Biden, who visited the Mississippi Church of the denomination's president way back in 2020, and Vice President Kamala Harris, who spoke at its annual session in 2022. Harris, now the Democratic presidential nominee in November, is affiliated with the church aligned with the denomination. So this is not something far out. This is pretty close to home. You see, the denomination, often known as NBC USA, faces major challenges in attracting young people to replace a largely aging membership, both in the pews and behind the pulpit. And these difficulties have only worsened since the COVID-19 pandemic, which, as we all know, disproportionately affected historically Black congregations. Now, a controversial election for a new president this week in Baltimore could add to the challenges. You see, NBC USA will decide at its annual session this week whether a sole candidate in a presidential election will succeed Reverend Jerry Young, a Mississippi pastor who served as the denomination's chief executive for 10 years, right? And so, look, part of the issue here is, how can you say that there was a fair election if only one person was allowed to run? And given the very important issues that the National Black Baptist Convention has been championing for many years, particularly in recent years, shouldn't they offer some good governance of their own? The idea that folks that are going to be at the helm of being a voice for congregants and churches across the country, advancing the cause of civil and human rights, shouldn't they be duly elected by the folks within their organization? The fact that there is only one person who is running for president of this organization, or allowed to, that flies in the face of calling this a fair election. And how can you be arguing outside of your organization for free and fair elections in communities across the country if you're not practicing that within your own house? It's an important conversation. And the question is whether or not the leadership over at the National National Baptist Convention, whether or not this Black denomination is going to meet the moment or not. Moving along in other news, have you given or received a big tip recently? I saw this article in the New York Times and I had to share it with you. The question is, has the spread of tipping, has it reached its limits? Americans are being asked to tip more often and in more places than ever before. At fast food counters and corner stores, at auto garages and car washes, and even at self-checkout kiosks. That has rankled many customers who've been divided, both employers and tip workers. And it may soon get a little bit worse because guess what? Both major party presidential candidates have embraced proposals to eliminate income taxes on tips, a move that would in effect subsidize tipping and prompt more businesses to rely on it. Look, economists across the political spectrum have panned the tax idea, arguing that it's unfair, favoring one set of low-wage workers over others, and could have unintended consequences. Even some tip workers and groups that represent them are skeptical, worrying that over the long term, the policy could result in lower pay. But the debate alone underscores how the service sector workers have emerged from the pandemic as an economic and politically potent force. The spread of tipping in recent years was in part as a result of intense demand for workers and the leverage it gave them. The presidential candidates' dueling proposals signal that they see the nation's roughly 4 million tipped workers as a constituency worth wooing. Do you see it that way? Look, the fact that there are so many service workers that really rely on tips. It's not their hourly wage, it's their tips that really allow them to cobble together a living wage. And while it may come as some release, it may seem to be some level of relief, these tipping proposals, we can't skirt around the conversation around a living wage. and what we're doing to make sure that our fellow Americans enjoy a living wage for the work that they do. And so it's going to be interesting to see how this comes up in the presidential debate taking place a week from today. Mark your calendars, September 10th. We're going to watch a presidential debate like we've never watched before. Former President Trump versus Vice President Kamala Harris. The first Black woman, first woman of South Asian descent, debating the former president in a bid to run this house, the White House, right behind me. And so we will be bringing you all of the important coverage related to that debate right here on KBLA Talk 1580. You ain't got to go far. You don't even have to go home. You can stream us from your device or just download the KBLA app to listen to us live or on demand, or simply tell Alexa to play KBLA Talk 1580, and you can listen to the debate and expert analysis to follow. I want to end with this. I was here at the White House earlier today in part to listen to what President Biden had to say about what he is calling his Investing in America agenda. There were a number of real people stories that we'll be sharing with you later in the week. Folks like Mayor Woodfin of Birmingham, Alabama, as well as Chairman Amelia Flores of the Colorado River Indians Tribe, and Cecilia Moyep, a concerned Philadelphia resident, all our fellow Americans that are championing change in their communities, and they're saying the Biden-Harris administration made it possible. And so we'll dig into those stories throughout the week, but we'll have to leave it there. My thanks to the entire village helps us produce a more perfect union each and every day. Our executive producer Tavis Smiley, our sound engineer Miles Lowe, our show producer Robert Battles, and our podcast publishing guru Odell Bodie. Remember, don't panic, organize. Do what you can from where you are with what you have. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, live from the White House, and you've been listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.